disconnect. Right.
All righty. How we doing, Cole? How we doing today?
I'm good, man. How's it going, Malik?
It's going good. It's going good. So in case you guys don't know, my name is Malik Robinson, aka Untitled Flow. That's UNTITLED Flow, in case for y'all who don't know. And that is how I'm going to introduce myself. So from now on.
I love that, man.
But thank you. Thank you. I do have the great opportunity today to talk with Cole Williams. He's one of the co-founders of the Delta Project. Now, we did have Father's Day that just passed a couple of days ago, but we still felt it was very important to have this conversation about the importance of fatherhood, not just fatherhood, but as a man, as a people of color, the importance of fatherhood in that community and the impact that it can have. So with me today, I have Cole. How are you doing today?
Man, good. I mean, I'm really glad to be here, Malik, and of course, I'm glad and honored to be interviewing with you, man, because of all your amazing work and supporting us as it relates to the work with the Delta Project. So, man, I'm just glad to be here to talk about an important subject that, of course, matters deeply to me. So, yeah.
So, of course, man, I do feel like because it's not a topic that's, I would say, it's not a topic that's really talked about until Father's Day really comes up. You hear, you hear a lot of people talking about how they wish they had fatherly figures, but even on Father's Day, fatherly figures are kind of acknowledged, but not really.
Right.
So, let's talk about your journey into fatherhood. How did you start that?
Yeah, that's such a crazy question. Well, I was about 16 when I became a father, and then 17, of course, when I went from being a father to like non-custodial to actually being a full-time dad with my son being at home with me. And I would say, man, the journey really was just about me accepting the fact that I was going to be a dad and then finding ways to learn how to become a better father while at the same time trying to figure out what it even means to be a man. So I think it was really interesting. My journey went from father first and then being a man as I'm still a boy at the same time. And so here I am with a son and I'm a boy without a father myself. And so I think my journey was tough, but it's a journey that many fathers that I work with have as a part of their story of either growing up without their father or growing with a father, but a father not being maybe physically or emotionally present. So, I mean, or having a father and him being actively involved in your life. So I think that my experiences have varied as it relates to what it means to be a father. And I think I've had to take all those experiences that I've had and try to piece fatherhood together for myself. So now I'm looking back, my sons are now all young adults in their 20s, and I'm really recognizing the power of fatherhood as I'm now reconnected with my own father and learning how to be a son for the first time in my life. And so I think that's been my new real journey is yeah, being a son to a father when I grew up without one. So yeah, that's crazy.
Well, and that is an amazing journey because with me, I was blessed to have my father in my life. So as you said, you had to learn how to be a father and then be a man. I was blessed with the opportunity to have my dad to teach me to think how to grow up as a self-respecting Black man with who is intelligent and how to walk into this world.
Mm.
And I'm also not a father yet, so I will admit that I do have little insight to this, but I wanted to ask you, when you first became a dad, you said at 16,
Yeah,
what were your thoughts that were going through your head? What was that like?
man, that's a long time ago, right?
Come on, don't be, it's not that long ago.
Man, you know what? I think I was actually really excited. The idea of being a father was, foreign to me because I didn't grow up without one, or I grew up without one. But actually becoming a father was kind of exciting for me, and so I was like really excited to be a dad. I remember watching television shows to kind of prep me for what I would be as a father. But I remember being really excited. And when he was born, I remember then moving into this space of like being scared and just really wondering if I even had what it took to be the kind of dad that he actually needed. And so it went from excitement to fear to happiness to sadness to joy to am I worthy to I'm going to do this. And I think it was just every emotion every person experiences when they do become a father, as to whether or not I had the skills to emotionally prepare my son, if I had the skills to financially be able to take care of him, if I had the skills spiritually to help guide him. Like these were all of the types of questions that I was asking myself. And in those questions, I was also experiencing a whole bunch of self-doubt because I hadn't had the tools that I really needed to kind of influence this child that now is like calling me dad. And so I think for me, it really became about me questioning what it even means to be a father, and then sort of seeking out the resources as to what it would take to be a dad by actually watching other men around me who happen to be fathers. So I think for me, it was just studying fatherhood is what helped me really understand like what it means to even do this thing we
Yeah.
talk about dads. So yeah, that was my experience.
Yeah, it seems like it was just a lot of just mixed emotions just coming at all different directions. And
Yeah.
I can only imagine and I can only imagine that's what other fathers go through as well. Now, you have said that you have been a father to others besides, that go beyond your biological son. And
Yeah.
in the Delta Project, we also have a father to son curriculum. So how does your experience and all those mixed emotions they may share as well, how does that all intertwine into, being a fatherly figure to people beyond your biological family and trying to teach others how to be a good father to their son?
Yeah, you know what? I always tell people that I feel like fatherhood just kind of chose me. It wasn't something that I became a dad, but I actually studied fatherhood and was like, oh, okay. Once I made all these huge errors, and I think that's how you really learn how to be a father is that you make tons of errors and make tons of mistakes. And you just hope that your kids who are experiencing those mistakes with you don't need a whole lot of therapy. But I really discovered that, man, fatherhood just sort of captured me and held on to me. And so I actually started to recognize the lack of my experience of not having my father to actually having my son and my son and I, me raising him on my own, and started noticing that as we looked around even in our neighborhood and in our community or our block, that I was one of a few fathers that were around, and there was a host of kids in my neighborhood and community that didn't even have a dad. And I realized that my son also noticed that too. So I would go to school conferences, and I would be the only dad in that space amongst a host of mothers. And so it really was evident to me that fatherhood was lacking in the community. And so I just found myself, or no, I can't even say I found myself. Kids found me and were just wanting to be a part of our journey.
How
Uh,
did that feel?
at first, you don't even really think about it. It's just like, oh, okay, before you know
Oh,
it,
dad figure.
space. Yeah, I'm sort of this father figure, not signing up and wanting to be a father figure, but it also just kind of came as a rites of passage to being a father to my own son. And then, of course, I became a licensed foster parent and an adoptive parent, which again, at that time, I wasn't planning to be an adoptive parent. I was just trying to bridge the gap in supporting families who have children in the foster care system and just kind of creating a bridge for kids to transition back home. But then I found, of course, a huge gap in that system that really didn't have a host of Black and brown families or men even in that space, too. So, I mean, it just became a part of, what I ultimately did. And so again, I always go back that this was not intentional. I didn't plan this, and even I've gained some level of success by being a father, but I think behind the scenes, people have no idea how difficult and tough it was to actually do the thing we call fatherhood, not only with my own biological child, but children that didn't come from me, and the huge amounts of work that I had to go through in terms of like really being available emotionally for kiddos that come from those spaces. I'm not even sure if I'm asking the question right or answering the question correctly, but I just recognize that, man, fatherhood just was, man, it definitely
Seems like
changed.
it was definitely, it
I,
seems like from what you told me, it was like really scarce in the community
yeah,
and within not just fatherhood, but fathers of black and brown fathers in the community and within the care system. And I was going to say about that is that within the foster care system is that becomes difficult because a lot of these kids come from different cultures, come from different backgrounds, and we want them to have families. That is very important. But with the limited amount of black and brown fathers,
right,
They miss out on that culture of what it means to be a Black man or
right,
a Hispanic man or a man of color.
right, right.
So
And so
I
what
think,
I've had to do, Malik, I've literally now have partnered with um, organizations or foster care agencies to just mentor white families who decide to do transracial foster care and adoption, and walk beside them. I often tell families too, you don't have to do foster care. You could do respite care. And respite is really just giving a foster family an opportunity or just a small break, where you sort of spend time with the kiddos that live with that family. It's almost like a little mini vacation, or it might be just, hey, you're going to go over to your respite family for a few hours or even over the weekend. But it's an extended family, or an extended community to families that have children that are in the system. But I think one of the other parts of this is that many of the kids that are in foster care system, I also have seen them in the juvenile justice system, which is
yeah,
really how the Delta Project, was I guess born from. Is that while I was teaching in the juvenile detention center, man, I'm talking to kids who are telling me that they don't have a relationship with their fathers, or if they do have a relationship with their father is currently incarcerated or has had incarceration in his history, which led me to saying, okay, then how do we support fathers? So then that pushed me into a space where I'm inviting my sons to say, hey, I need you to come to the prison with me because I want to do fatherhood work in the prison. And so my sons volunteer with me to go inside 3 of the prisons in the state of Michigan to support fathers. Ultimately, I built out a 12-week curriculum to support fathers in prison, and then found out, that not only did I need fatherhood work in the prison, but I was also seeing young dads in the juvenile detention center that were becoming fathers as well. So everywhere I go, I'm just sort of seeing this emergency, or this gap of like this need for fathers to be involved and be present. But on the flip of that, I'm also working alongside all these amazing Black and brown fathers, man, who are not only taking care of their children, but they also are doing some amazing community work. So it became this concept like, how do I bring these men in front of these guys, these kids, and how do we begin to bridge the gap to sort of model for them that, what, fatherhood is real. There are great and amazing fathers out here in their very community that are fathering. But how do you put them in front of each other? And so I think that's kind of really where this all started and formed, is that I see a gap. And when it comes to fatherhood and parenting, um, I just kind of build something around that to support the families that I want to see grow and change. And that's just kind of the organic way of doing how I do this stuff. Yeah.
yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing where the path can take us throughout life.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
You know,
And
it's
I'm
amazing.
interested to hear from you too, man, in terms of like growing up with a father. I don't know what it means to be a son to a father, but I do know how to be a father to a son. And so I'm really interested in just sort of hearing from you. What was your experience like having a father in comparison to maybe some of your other friends that didn't have a father? Did you see anything different in that space around how they reacted and responded to you or your dad?
Um, Actually, yeah, because so my mom and dad had me in 19 and 20. So my dad was 20 when he had me. And then they had 4 kids all a year apart right afterwards. So it was just literally one after the other. And I grew up watching my dad,
Mhm.
one, support my mom when she went through school. My dad was working a couple jobs here and there. I remember waking up a couple mornings early when we was really young. I was probably like 6 or 7, and my mom would always tell me, "Hey, we got to take your dad to work, so he can, provide for us." And and I always wondered why would why my dad was working so hard, but it was seeing how my dad helped my mom put through school and then vice versa, just seeing that powerful relationship with my parents and them teaching me that they're doing all of this so that we can have together, so me and my brothers and sisters can have a better life. That definitely impacted me because seeing my dad work so hard to become something from where he came from and to where he is now. He's an accountant for the city of Forest Park. And that may not be exactly what he does, but in that role, to see him come from where he was just fixing ATM machines and telling me he wanted to be an accountant. I remember telling him, and I'm so sorry for this dad, when he told me he wanted to be an accountant. I'm not a big fan of math, but it but seeing him come from fixing ATM machines to becoming an accountant, it really inspired me, because so many people were surprised whenever my dad, especially my dad,
Yeah.
seeing my dad walk around with 5 little ones behind him. Everybody was like, now people asked my mom how are they well so behaved, but they were more really surprised when they asked my dad. They was like, man, your kids are just so well behaved. Well, we was terrified.
Right. Right.
But nah, seriously. And there's things that my dad has taught me. Like I still remember this. There was like going to the grocery store, and we would sit there, and my dad's a math guy, and we would sit there and go through the different products. Like one product would be like some cereal and another cereal, and we'll sit there and do the whole math right there, which one was the better price and everything. And to this day, I still do that. So,
Love it.
and I noticed that a lot with all of my other friends that didn't have a dad. Whenever, like in church, some of my church friends didn't have a dad, some of my school friends. So whenever they was around, my dad he was always a social person. So he always reached out, he always connected. And so I wouldn't say he tried to step in as their father, but most of the people that my dad has interacted with that were around my age, he always found a way to pour into them. Even if that person was shut off, even if that person didn't want to talk, my dad always found a way to connect with that person. My dad was a person who inspired me that it's okay, that it is cool to be smart. Like I used to be ashamed for being smart, but seeing how smart my dad is and how he moved, it really inspired me to really take that role. So I think having my dad in my life, seeing all the sacrifices he made, not just for me and my brothers and sisters, but also my mom, and what he did for himself, inspired me to, like, I think it was more just important to me on how I should move when I graduate high school, how to set myself up. The stuff that they're doing in their 30s, I inspire to do in my 20s, and so on and so forth. So having my dad in my life basically was a great role model on the path that I should take on how to move, because I wouldn't admit it for a very long time, but I am very much like him. And I think that was just because we were different. Me and my dad are very different, but we're also very the same. So he was one of the first males that I ever seen cry. I've never seen a grown man cry. I can't even remember the incident that made him cry, but I remember seeing that. My dad, seeing my dad show emotion besides anger and calm made it, start to make it seem, help me express my emotions, because I feel like as as African American males, just being a male in general,
Mm-hmm.
or just taught to tough it up. But as I've been growing up, seeing my dad express his emotions, not just when he's angry,
Yeah.
but when he's upset, when he's down. My dad was somebody at first that tried to protect me, but as I started to grow up, he realized that he had to start being one-on-one, start being real with me with some of the struggles that he went through.
Yeah.
And I think one thing that he told me was that, like, when some of the stuff he wouldn't tell me because he didn't want me to go down that path, but he realized that we needed to have those conversations. And without those conversations, I probably would have went on that path and maybe even further. So I'm grateful for my dad to have that had that leadership, not just by words and telling me what to do, but by his actions, the way he carried himself, the way he interacts with other people, not just at his job, just at church, everywhere he goes, he has this network of people that respect him. And when he does something, he not only does it with excellence, he prepares for it.
Yeah. So everything you said, Malik, is the very reason why the Delta Project was enacted, was activated, was started. because this idea is, how do I become something I don't see? But what you just said is why the power of fatherhood is so important, because children will become what they do see, in so many ways, and in so many layers. You just described so eloquently the importance and the power of fatherhood, the importance and power of modeling, and what happens to children when they are inspired by the very first person that teaches them, and that's oftentimes your parents. So
Yeah.
I really think, honestly, that is where I feel like our interview just started with the question I asked you, and then
Yeah.
you just ended it like that. If you just show that right there, what you just said and what I asked you and what you just did, that to me is what we should be putting on to for this video series, because that was perfect.
Thank you.
I
Thank
don't
you.
even know if you saw what you just did. Like, so I hope you watch it back. I hope you share it with your father, because I often know too that fathers don't always get to hear sometimes the nuggets and the jewels and the legacy that they have created in their everyday movement and interactions with their children and their families. And I think what you just said is so profound in terms of, like, I don't even know your father, but I know your father through you. And so I don't ever have to meet him to know the kind of man he is, because I just experienced him by listening to you tell his legacy and his story. So I think that's the power of, like, fatherhood. And I always tell people, I'm like, you want to know about a man, all you have to do is ask his children. And his
Yeah.
children can tell you a great deal about who he is. And you just said everything I need to know about him and the kind of man you are, and the integrity that he walks in, and that now you are carrying that mantle too. So yeah, man, I feel good about the interview, because everybody knows my story. Nobody knows yours and your dad's story, and the power of why we created the Delta Project Conversations. Yeah, man, we just heard about your father today, and I'm honored that you shared him with us.
Yeah. My dad is not just a great person.
Yeah,
My dad has been a father figure to many. And honestly, that was he was the one. I mean, he was the one that used to wake us up in the morning to volunteer to go to church to do the communities. And that's why I pour so much into the community. He was the one that always, with my music,
yeah,
there was some disagreements, but one thing that he always challenged me, he was like, okay, if you're going to, my parents are religious and I am as well. So one thing he said, he was like, all right, if you're going to do this music thing,
mm,
if you're going to make music, does it have to be with profanity? So they're the reason my dad was the one who challenged me to really get into writing, really get into how to really describe what I'm feeling in ways that in ways that I wouldn't say nobody else could, but in ways that many may not think of at first. So my dad was always a person that, okay, if we're going to do this, how are we going to, how can we da 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 da?
yeah,
That my dad was always somebody that pushed me. And at first, I will admit, it was a lot of pressure. It was a lot of pressure, especially me being the oldest
yeah,
out of five. But I will say that my parents, especially, well, my mom, I don't want to bring out my mom, but we're talking about my dad, but groomed me to be somebody to not only set up my own success, but to blaze the path for my brothers and my sisters, my god brothers, my god sisters, my little cousins, etc., and so on and so forth.
mm,
Because I'll say this will be the last thing I say, but so there were five of us, right? My mom and dad always had this saying about the five of us, and there's five fingers on your fist, and they said that together, each one separately they can do their own thing, but together they make a fist.
yeah,
And with this fist, you can punch through or get through anything.
absolutely.
So with my parents and especially my dad, they always taught us that unity was the most important, that coming together and love is the most important, not trying to be what everybody else think you should be, but the person, who you are because we raised you to be who you are, you know? Um,
Yeah,
what's crazy is that I feel special because my dad's name is Calvin and my little brother was named after him. So
Okay.
my little brother got my dad's name and they gave me Malik. But if you look up Malik, it means Master King, Arabic prophet. And ever since I've always, and they told me that they gave me that name for a reason. And I've always taken that to heart. So, a prophet does nothing but speak the truth. And I feel like with my dad and his intellect, he gave me the mind to be able to create a powerful voice, to be able to share with others.
Man, man, that's it. That's it, man. That's
So I guess it's just what's one thing that we can say to fathers or people trying to be father figures, people who are father figures. Like we heard your story about how you became a father without one. We heard my story of the impact of me having a father and maybe one day becoming one.
yeah,
What do we say to fathers that's out there or kids that need a father
yeah,
or a fatherly figure, how to become one?
yeah. That's a good question. Um, I guess when I look back on my experience, I just come to recognize that the creator is amazing and that all the things you don't have that you think you need are often right in front of you. Um, and so I've come to realize that no, I didn't have my physical father in front of me, but I did have inspiration. I did have father figures that the creator helped me see. And that I ultimately did find my father, and then now I'm working to really create a relationship with him. So I think for what I've been learning is that, man, all the things you look to others and you like, man, why didn't I have this or why didn't I have that? You will discover once you get past that and start looking at what you do have and practicing a sense of gratitude of what you have, you'd be surprised how those things that you do have and you appreciate can get you through some of the most difficult and tough times of your life. And that's just really been my life lesson. It's like
I
you don't
also want to say,
yeah,
I was not to cut you off, but I also want to say,
no,
once you have that perspective, you'll start to realize too how you had it all along.
absolutely.
Like you said with those father figures, like sometimes my dad wasn't all available, but I'm grateful that he allowed me to have other people, with that were respectable, that he approved of, to also
Absolutely.
pour into me, to give me different perspectives. So sometimes, like you said, I feel like there are a lot of kids that are, or maybe viewers that are watching this right now, like, man, they talking about dads, I don't even have one. I don't even talk to mine. But there is somebody that is pouring into your life.
Absolutely.
Whether there is somebody,
Yeah,
whether it's male or female, whether it's a motherly figure or a fatherly figure, both are important.
absolutely. And be willing to seek it out too. That's another part of this. I tell people, man, if you're trying to find it and you can't, sometimes the best way is to reach out. And I know that can be difficult, especially if you have experiences where you've been hurt by men, but there's power in doing the work and sort of saying, hey, this is what I need, and I'm not going to stop until I get that. So I know everybody goes to their barber, so depending on your barber could be that one person that you can reach out to, that you can talk to. So I think it really becomes about parents sort of really looking at the landscape of their natural supports. Who are those people? And then how to build a team around a young person that doesn't have a father figure so that they have the village that they need. And I think that for me has been the big thing that I've learned, that what I've done is really about creating village and
Yeah.
going back and recognizing I didn't have a village. But I wanted to make sure that my sons had people that they could trust and rely on. If I
And there's
create
no,
a
and
village,
there's no, yeah, and
yeah,
there's no criteria either,
not at all, man. Not at all.
no criteria, you could be what, I'm 23 and I've never been a father, and I could potentially be a father figure to somebody, you know, there's people younger than me that are dads. There's people, so I want to encourage everybody that watches this that always look for someone to pour into you, but always be ready to pour into somebody else
Well said.
because you never know how, just like I said, the little things like the grocery store thing that I brought up, comparing those two prices. That was something that we used to do all the time, something that's that small, as a skill, a life skill that I use every single day to save money, to grocery shop, take care of myself, budget, etc., etc.
Yeah.
So you never know what something that may be just, small to you can mean to somebody else.
Well said. Well said. Man, Malik, thank you, man, for having me come on, man. And man, I walked
Thank
away with
you.
jewels too, brother. And yeah, I just appreciate sharing this time with you. And again, celebrating fathers. I think celebrating fathers shouldn't just happen on Father's Day. I think it should be something that we do 365 days of the year. So
Of course.
yeah,
Of
yeah,
course.
yeah.
And as the world continues to grow, I hope, we got to continue to be, I feel like fear is a big motivator when it comes to that. So
Absolutely.
we have to not just preach, but preach empowerment,
Hmm.
empowerment and support. I feel like that, because like you said, like when you described yours, all those different emotions coming at you in different ways, it's having that person, you can do this. You are that child's father, or you are this father figure.
Yeah.
And you have no idea how much that means to that person.
Yeah.
So I feel like as long as we're doing our best, that's all we can do.
That's it, man. We can do our best. And one thing that's for free is encouragement. We just have to
Exactly.
continue to encourage each other. And I think encouragement can take you a long way. So,
Exactly.
yeah. So, man, thank you again for having me on your show.
Thank you.
Yeah, man. So I will stop the recording. See if I can do this.